Let me.
Mental Dialogue Black Level presents 3 the Smart Way as we discuss business and finance for the culture, featuring serial entrepreneur William Agnew, trader and investor Michael Suttlar, and hosted by yours truly, mental activist Montoya Smith. Catch us live or subscribe for replays on the Mental Dialogue YouTube channel.
What's up, everybody? It's your boy Montoya Smith, aka Black Socrates. I am here for our pop-up 3 the Smart Way as I get my brothers William and Michael on this thing with me. Again, this is what we do. We just pop up out the blue and do these extremely smart conversations on business and finance, if you will. As I put up there, I'm a mental activist with Mental Dialogue, if you will. So I'm kind of hosting and mediating this thing, but y'all are the 2 experts. And so we'll always start with business first. When y'all are both here together, glad to have y'all for episode 2 on at the same time. So William, we'll start with you, if you will. Give people a little bit of background so they can know why we're capable of having smart conversations on business and finance.
Just a little background. So I did the traditional thing for beginning of my life, went to school, got my bachelor's degree, got my master's degree. Thought the traditional way of making money and living my life and my career was going to be simple and easy, kind of the American dream, so to speak. Found out that wasn't the case. Kind of went down that road, did that, got to what I say, like I said last time, the plantation or the corporation, whatever you want to call it. Got into it, realized too many politics, not fulfilling. There's a cap, right? And I didn't like the cap. And so I've always had the entrepreneurial spirit. So around 2008, got out of that and got into, starting my own business. Had to take a lot of steps backwards to do that, pay other people, not pay myself, that kind of thing. But it's been worth it, until today, the investment paid off. I haven't been back on the plantation or the corporation since. So, multiple businesses, partnerships.
How many years?
Say it again.
How many years you've been out off the plantation, if you will?
Since 2008. So what is that? That's about 16, 17 years, something like that. Yeah, 16 years. So still going strong, blessed, thank God. Stuff is always changing, so you never know with the economy, COVID, kind of stuff is gonna throw you.
Let me jump. Right? Yeah, let me jump Michael in here, man. We'll probably do these introductions, for the first so many shows.
Sure.
You never see people gonna pop in, but eventually, hopefully, they get to know us, and we don't have to, do them too long, if you will. But Michael, if you will, give a background and highlight conscious money before we get into our. If you don't, it's a little thing, that's a term you kind of came up with.
Absolutely. No.
For the tail end of your intro as well before we get into our subject matter today.
Makes sense now. I appreciate it. No, former rocket scientist or missile simulation engineer, whatever you would have called it. I worked for the Department of Defense for 12 years, but during that time, sort of like William said, it's like I thought for sure going to a missile lab where I'm seeing DoD technology at its finest, it was a dream coming, Air Force Academy background. I thought this was it. And it wasn't very long before I realized, nah, bro, this ain't it. There was no meritocracy like I had been trained for the first 23 years of my life. There was politics galore, and I couldn't find my space to invent, to create. So I created one. And that was not just like out of the blue. Like, I don't believe in, self-made. I think you're community sponsored. That's why I rock with, the mental activist Montoya and William. Like, you guys are my guys, because as I look back, a really good friend of mine, also from Air Force Academy, was the one that really pointed me towards trading. He's like, no, you're going to like this. Like, he was very confident. And it wasn't a like, it was an absolute love. And that was 2005. 2008, I made more money than I'd seen at the time.
Right.
And that was enough to really shake up going, yeah, you know, right now I got this 6-figure job and I'm married, you know, life is good. But I was like, this is the chance to really start something new. So I've been studying hedge funds probably since first starting about trading, because I'm a student of whatever market I'm in. I felt like I was trained that you learn best by doing, but you better learn what the people before you have done before, so you don't make the same mistakes. So I started my own hedge fund in 2010. It was an absolute disaster to start out, as most businesses are. It being a very complex business, a very expensive business, saw that what I thought was a lot of money was just pocket change. That's the amount of money that you're supposed to have to start up this kind of stuff. Long story short, we survived. I learned business by trial by fire. I now the business is still in operation. It's a 14-year-old. It's my first child. You know, I got an actual child that's turning 13 soon, but my business is my first child. And since then, we've had another Blacks Academy, where we also teach that there's a difference between, and that's the thing. I'll wrap this up. There's a difference between, you know, trading and investing, and it's definitely a difference between what you see online and what actually is. I can tell you by almost 20 years of experience, nothing of what you see online is actually real. None, absolutely none of it.
Facts.
And the other thing that we'll talk about, which is why I love, you know, 3 the Smart Way, is my thing in America is you've been taught that capital is amoral, capital is immoral. You know, depending on what school of thought you come from. That may be true, but I think for the Black community going forward, that we have to have a consciousness to how we do our capital, how we work, because I think culturally that's something that probably was lost. Because I can tell you the way that it worked for me, I could not be amoral or immoral with the intention of doing so and being successful in what I've done. Capital had to come with a consciousness, with a purpose, with an aim that actually benefits, not destroys.
Absolutely.
No, I love it. And I just like to highlight that because as we let's go ahead and get into this subject matter, and I'll kind of set the stage. I sent y'all a video on Amazon. There's a particular book that was highlighted in the video that I sent y'all, talking about Amazon growing from a garage, if you will, to this big behemoth.
Love that story.
Yeah, they love telling that story as if he wasn't able to borrow a couple $100,000 to get started. You know what I mean? He was just in this little garage with the little sign up that you see on social media all the time.
Right.
But yeah, I wonder how well we would have did with a couple $100,000 or whatever we threw out there first. You know what I'm saying? A little borrow from the family. You know what I mean? I always leave that part of the story, if you will. But with that said, everybody, you've heard we got a lot of experience on Through the Smart Way, and so we're just going to dialogue about different issues about business and finance, and hopefully you pick up some gems in this discussion. So basically, the book that was highlighted was basically the Everything War, if you will. The Everything War, Amazon's Ruthless Quest to Own the World and Remake Corporate Power by Dana Mattioli. Hope I'm saying that correctly. And so just to highlight some aspects of that book, and this is a book that was just released. But the couple of things that she highlights, she says in 2017, Lena Khan published a paper that accused Amazon of being a monopoly. Having grown so large and embedded in so many industries, it was akin to a modern-day Standard Oil. Unlike Rockefeller's empire, however, Bezos' company has grown voraciously without much scrutiny. And so, if you remember, fellas, we mentioned monopoly very briefly in episode 1, right? And we highlighted how in the tech era, and that's part of the reason they're able to grow, if you will. There's more to it than that. But at the same time, for anybody that knows American history and, big oil and the idea to shut down the monopolies because they were unfair to the marketplace, the reality is we're seeing these lawsuits against the Facebooks, against Amazon, Apple. Yep, we just talked about Apple last week because they've kind of went unfettered because it's a little more difficult to supposedly enforce the monopoly laws via online. But the other thing is Amazon set out as a low-cost retailer, right? And so something that Mattioli points out says if since they were able to offer such a low cost at such efficiency, that the marketplace, in a sense, played a role in allowing, because the people liked it, right? In allowing the government not to, in a sense, look at people under the hood and see what the Googles and the Apples and the Amazons were doing, especially Amazon, because the marketplace wanted cheaper items very fast. And so that's just a little setup talking about this. It's what this book goes into. But I'll let William, I'll let you kind of jump in and just give, if you will, both of y'all give quick thoughts, because I want to give some more context and move us through that video that we watched. But just a thought on what you heard so far.
Yeah, I don't think Amazon is anything new in terms of strategy and approach to consumer consumer transactions. Walmart was the retail version of Amazon. Amazon is just a technology play, right? But it's the same concept. It's centralization of products and services. And when you do that, right, it's a convenience versus centralized strategy. And that happened. Walmart's a great example of that in the retail space. Amazon just took it and kind of transitioned that same approach to technology where, they reduce the price because they have centralized control of products and services. And so what that allows them to do is just reduce the cost over time. And so everybody complained about Walmart. Everybody talked about their, pay structure and how they treat their employees. And they did the same thing. But at the end of the day, every Christmas, every holiday, everybody's going where? They're going to Walmart. Same thing with Amazon. Amazon is just a more convenience play, integrating technology into the same fold. And, I remember living in some well-to-do environments or communities that actually petitioned to keep Walmarts out back in the days because they knew what would happen, right? Mm-hmm. They knew Walmart would come in and the mom and pops would get pushed out, right? And so you had people who are in the know of this type of strategic approach with centralization who would fight against it because they wanted some control of their neighborhoods. But obviously in poor neighborhoods, the convenience was so good, people went to Walmart because the prices were low. And that's what, as consumers, that's what we look for a lot of times. So Amazon is really no different. It was just a technical space. And the regulation around technology has always been delayed because of the adaptation that they want for consumers, right? Big word. And so regulation is always delayed because they want you to kind of buy into it before they regulate it. What you're starting to see in 2024 is regulation around a lot of the internet, right? And that's going to continue to happen because now the adaptation to this medium, people are used to, and it's a convenience that people understand. So now what you're going to see, I think, for the next administration that comes in, is you're going to see a lot of regulation placed into how we actually move on the internet. So Amazon is not anything new or different. They just capitalized in the technology space, just like Walmart or any other big centralized, business has done around consumer, acquisition or spending. So that's how I see it.
No, I love it. And let me highlight real quick, and I'll let Michael give your thoughts as well to what we've said so far. But just another quick example that people can easily relate to is basically anytime a new industry is pretty much put in place, whether via technology, for example, Uber, is always the wild, wild west. Everybody the most money in the initial beginnings. And then it's like, as the money's made, that allows, if you will, the government to kind of, okay, here's where the money is being made. Here's where we can regulate it and tax it to get our money. But we need to let them make the money in all the ways that they can to even figure out how to regulate it. To your point, that's what's, as you said, that's what's beginning to happen with the internet. And I think what TikTok's possibly going to be banned
exactly.
here. Soon,
great example.
As an example of, no longer being the wild, wild west. Right. Go ahead, Michael, your thoughts real quick, and I'll get into some details with what's going on with Amazon and how they're being sued.
Man, y'all making this story easy, man. This story is so easy. Like this would, first of all, I will say of all the techno overlords, I tell y'all all, Elon Musk gets my ire, but in a different vein, and there's some similarities. I think Bezos gets my, I wouldn't call it respect, but I opened the book. I've read up on him a lot because I saw his strategy, and I was like, we were talking about in the hip hop world, like I said, my bias is always to strategy. And so, like William was saying, this isn't new. The thing that people miss, and because you're supposed to miss it, is number one, the American dream that we keep talking about is to become a multinational corporation, be a multi-billion, because If you have that, if you are that, no matter how you get there, you have all the rights and privileges of an American citizen, and then some. So that's kind of like on the top level. Taking it down just a little bit, though, just that thing about convenience is like a really soft, comfortable noose around the neck of the 340 million Americans. And as long as it feels good to us, we don't care. And Amazon, Jeff Bezos, because I posit because of his background, both his resources, his educational background, where he worked, he understood this at such a level that when people were still showing him, oh, look at the little short, bald-headed guy in the garage with the little Amazon sign, he already had laid out the last 60 years. We're just now seeing what he was thinking about. Because I will tell you, Blue Origin started in 2000, but in his graduation speech from high school, I think, he talked about, going to space is a big dream. So you kind of see what, so like 18 to 60, he started at like in his 40s. We're seeing, and that's the thing what you mentioned about regulation, the media, the United States conscious of us, our collective conscious, is so far behind because big businesses have figured out a long time ago. Go back Standard Oil, Carnegie's, whatever you want to call them. Go back to the Robert Barons. They knew one thing: adapt or die. When you said regulation starting to adapt, it always comes too late because the conscience of the person milling around being conveniently noosed by what's going on is missing the point. And so that's my thing on, and that's why, like I said, I like his strategy. The person, I don't know him, but
let me jump in right there. Let me jump in right there and get into some specifics. And I also, again, 3, the smart way. Obviously, with being with mental dialogue, if you will, I want to encourage anybody who watches this, if you will, to not get into the right and wrong as much as the dialogue of how much we're going to talk about the how, and for you to give thought to it and give consideration. I think that's what you're beautifully highlighting, Michael, when you say, when you kind of mention, no matter how you get there, right? You're just talking about the reasons we've gotten here, if you will. And if you're listening, as much as Michael talked about conscious money, I want to kind of just have you distinguish a lot of our dialogues on the smart way will be about the how, and you can give consideration for how that matters to you or not. But we're not necessarily doing these evaluations to necessarily say whether they are right or wrong. That's kind of neither here or there when it comes to, as you said on episode 1, business is war. And
I was about to remind it,
right. And if that's the game we're playing, you better figure out how to play properly, if you will. So when you go from a garage startup to this big behemoth, this is some of the practices that the book highlights. Here's an example. One of the ones that was pointed out in that video I wanted to highlight was in 2015, Amazon wanted to launch a food brand called Wickedly Prime. And they actually had an internal paper that said, we want to replicate the top 200 items at Trader Joe's. So what they did was they hired an executive for Trader Joe. And the first week she was at the headquarters in Seattle, she found a secret conference room full of Trader Joe snacks, from the exact same area she had worked in prior to getting there. Next thing you know, her supervisor was pressuring her to provide any data that she still had access from Trader Joe's. Eventually, she caved in. They kept pressuring her even after she gave the initial data to get even like the margins of data, like how much they were making on each of these items. And she got so upset eventually that she broke down and cried. And that's how much pressure they were putting on her. Eventually, somebody reported it to legal, and they got let go.
I was gonna say she not Amazon Fit then. That's
it's corporate espionage, and that's corporate espionage is nothing new under the sun. That happens all the time, every day. That happens with hiring and the firing of employees, right? And so when you get high enough in the corporate ladder, what you start to see is people move around really quickly. One thing I noticed when I was working at Intel in my corporate experience is people move. They were in one position for maybe 24 months max, and then they would move around, right? And then when they got enough value, right, they would then begin to negotiate where they work. So I might go from Intel to AMD, from AMD to some other, Motorola. And that's that's a part of corporate espionage, where you're taking that information with you, and then that next company is going to debrief you and understand what the value proposition was over there. And that's just part of the game. The beautiful part of where we are right now is it's more system. You can't control the information. What you can control is the system, right? And so now what's happening, and this is really a shift in the marketplace, you're seeing a lot of retail companies now start to lead with technology in regards to how they train and how they sustain, and then they just implement a product into that part of the technology. So it's almost backwards, where they used to sell you the product and the service. Now they sell you how great the technology is that supports the product and the service. So I'll give you an example. I'm working with a company right now. They door knock, right? So door knocking is that thing. So whether it's like pest control or roof repair or whatever it is, these are things you have to knock on the door and educate people in order to get the thing to work. So what they're leading with in that space now is the technology that helps you as a door knocker be more successful, not the product. See, back in the day, like in the 60s, they used to sell vacuum cleaners, right? They would go door to door to sell the vacuum cleaner. And you had to do the presentation and say, ooh, look how beautiful this vacuum cleaner is. Look how it sucks. It's got so much power, right? It's not like that anymore. Now, to get somebody to buy in, because we live in this technological space, you say, look, I'm going to equip you with the technology that allows you to take that one sale that you're probably used to doing in regards to how cool the product and the service is. I'm going to put you on this octane, right, so to speak, with this system that allows you to do this better, more fluidly, and it's going to take your sales from 1 a month to 6 a month. So that's the space we're in. People are starting to identify that what used to be the sales proposition in today's space,
that's smart.
And to make that relative to what Amazon has done is, like Michael was saying, Jeff Bezos realized this way before the technological value proposition was realized by other people. And he said, look, I'm gonna go to my investors and I'm gonna convince my investors to invest in the system. Right? Over the next 10 to 15 years. Now, what are we going to do? We're going to lose money every year until we start to see. And when we're going to get this slow transition from retail to online, and we're going to take some losses for about 10 years. But what we realize is that technological thing that I just explained is going to be a huge play in consumers understanding the value proposition of the products and sales, if that makes sense.
Makes a lot of sense.
That's dope. I love the whole, like you just talked about, like, because in our neighborhood I'm starting to see more guys come knock at the door. What they're talking about is different. I typically just because of entrepreneurship, I give them like a minute. I'm like, hey, give me your spiel for a minute. I'm like, I'm no, you're
a real elevator pitch. They better be good at it.
Yeah. Give me a minute. You got a minute. I'm in here cooking. Got my kids. Let's go. But what I've noticed is they've started talking about technological processes, just like you. I was talking to the wife about that. So that's a really good point. So
that's the value proposition now, is using that tech. So we're catching up at the retail level or even societal level as a consumer, and even entrepreneurs, and understanding that even us, myself, Michael, you, Montoya, how much technology have we had to adapt to, right, in order to sustain and maintain a competitive edge in our mutual vertices, right? Because
y'all got me on video. I don't like to be on this video. I do an audio show every Saturday. I love that show.
That's what I'm.
That's an example. But I also want to highlight again, in the same vein of just again how we're moving through this dialogue and not focus on the right and wrong. Because again, if people are at war, right, you would expect spying and espionage, right? We've understood that concept, and so again, we're not even into the right or wrong. We don't know what will come of this lawsuit that Amazon's up against. They're not having to go to court till 2026. Don't begin to let me tell you how that part works. They got 2 years. They ain't got to worry about it, right? But either way, what I'm highlighting though, as as we start hearing, because because once it becomes legal, you're going to start hearing the propaganda of how bad Amazon is or not, that type of thing. Again, I'm not telling you to agree or disagree with it, but I am highlighting to William's point when I explained what they did with the young lady. William just jumped in and said that, that's just normal. That's just an average thing. Again, we're not making it right or wrong. We're just realize if you're at war, espionage is a common thing. And so understand that all these companies are doing it to some degree. Some may be, more nefarious about it than others, right? But again, it's not for us to judge. Go ahead, William.
Well, just to add to it again, we're in the information age, right? So that being said, you can't control the information anymore. Does that make sense? So this is what we're understanding. Like, the information is not the value proposition anymore. It's fluid. You can go online and learn almost anything.
Yes.
Harvard's information. If you want to take a Harvard course, you can go online right now and take a Harvard course for free. Right? The information is no longer privy to certain people. It's out there. So you can't compete on just the information anymore. So what you have to start doing is competing on the process. And so if you look at what Amazon did, it's the process that they invested in, which is how they deliver their products and services. That's where they got the biggest value proposition. It's taking the labor and making it semi-human, semi-robot, right? Where you can lower the cost and the delivery and setting up these delivery locations and employing. Here's the beautiful thing: employing people as delivery opportunities who use their own vehicles to get paid to deliver our products and our services. So you have to start looking at like investments in that. How do you change the game as opposed to what it's been for the last 10, 15 years? And then you take that market share away from, giants like Walmart, because now it's like, well, I don't even have to go out to get what I want. I posted a video the other day of the drone. I don't know if you guys saw that, the drone doing the delivery. You guys probably seen it.
I did.
Right?
I did.
So now you got drones delivering products. So what does that mean? That means, and I asked the guy, I said, well, how many products? He said, we got 2,000 SKUs, right? That can be delivered via this method, right? Ice cream. If you think about it, a pint of ice cream can be delivered by a drone now. You understand what I'm saying? Yes, it can be delivered by a drone if you're in this location. And me and my daughter went and checked it out. But it's that type of technology that's always changing the value. Montoya, I talk about value proposition all the time, right? And you have to always be checking, right? What is my value proposition today, and who's trying to take that away from me based on the technology and what's feasible to do.
Matter of fact, let me jump in right there and highlight again. They like you, to your point, Amazon has mastered processes and has allowed them to get into a lot of areas. And that's partly why they're coming under the scrutiny. And this is how it's played out even for individuals, if you will. And this I think will be part of this lawsuit, is how Bezos kind of, in a sense, brilliantly came up with this thing where people can actually sell their products on Amazon. That's relatively unheard of. But now what people are talking about is how for some of the people that sell on their page, they'll get the data, see how they're selling, and they'll actually go reverse engineer and undercut them and put that same product somewhere else. And to a degree, sometimes put some of their own sellers out of business, if you will, while there are plenty of sellers who they're making millions because they have access to the Amazon process. Go ahead, brother. I'm sorry.
It's the oldest strategy in the book, right? The Trojan horse is biblical. The Trojan horse is biblical, right? That's biblical. The story of the Trojan horse is biblical. So what Amazon simply is a Trojan horse, right? All of the retailers did what? So what they compete on is customer attention. And what do retailers want? They want customer attention. So whatever platform has the most customers, that's where your retailers are going to sell. I remember, I got to tell you this story real quick. Now I'll let Michael jump in. So back in about 10 years ago, I used to buy audio equipment. I used to buy audio equipment all the time, right? And so, do you guys remember the RCA jacks?
Yeah, of course.
Yep.
Right. So I used to buy the RCA jacks. They got the red and the white. and the green
Yellow.
end, you know what I'm talking about?
Yep.
The yellow. So one year I was online and I was buying them, and I noticed that one was $15 and one was $10. Right? One was $15 and one was $10. Sorry about that, guys. One was $15 and one was $10. Right? And the one that was $10 it had Amazon Prime on it, like literally. And so I ordered it, and when I looked at it and it came, it had Amazon on the RCA jack. And that's when I realized, because I realized as a consumer that there was no difference in the actual product. The only difference is one was owned by Amazon and one was owned by the company who specialized in this. And so what Amazon has been doing for over 15 years is looking at what is hot and then rebranding it, going to Shenzhen, China, right? Which I'm very familiar with the process. Going, hey, this is hot, this is selling, we need this, put our name on it. And then because the Trojan horse of it is, now they scale you back in terms of the customer, because they own the customer visibility. They own that. So now they scale you back and they put their product up front. And they've been doing that for 15 years. They've been doing it for a long time. And it's the same process. And it's just controlling the information. And that is the danger of having a centralized monster such as an Amazon, because people can see the data, and if they control all the information as well as your product and your service, and you're allowing them to manage that, then ultimately you're going to lose out to the person who controls all of that, which is what Amazon has done for years. So it's not anything. It's a Trojan horse strategy, right?
And like, to your point, with it being the oldest game in the book, the oldest trick in the book, as you called it, it's also, I would say, imperative that even if you decide as an entrepreneur out there, or a business owner in the future, if you will, if you have the vision to grow and scale a business, because most business owners are solopreneurs. That's all races and cultures, more so us. So we're always trying to get into scaling. Well, scaling will include understanding that these tactics are so normal that to get into business and think, well, I would never do that, will also keep you out of business. And again, it's not about right or wrong. It's about when William says, hey, I put this out there, and he says, oh, this is the oldest trick in the book. It's the oldest trick to the point where every business knows it, understands it. It doesn't mean I won't go to court with you and fight over what you did to me. Right. Again, it's part of the game. You will not grow a business and get big and not eventually go to court, even quote unquote, while trying to do the right thing, if you're playing the game correctly. Again, I'm just trying to raise the culture on the perspectives of being in this war. I'm going to keep using that term that Michael gave us last week. Jump in real quick, Michael, and then I want to take a little pivot with this conversation as well.
Well, number one, you don't go to war not knowing what war is, right? Which is kind of hard to say if I've always wanted to own a coffee shop, or I wanted to do this, but it's tantamount to going to war because you're going to have to fight for some resources, some position, some longevity in this space. And for most people, like I said, when we first started, most people don't even know this war is going on. We're talking about espionage and things of this nature. It goes all the way back to one of my favorite works, which is The Art of War by Lao Tzu. Sun Tzu, most people know him. Lao Tzu, Sun Tzu, same name synonymous. But I posit that it's in Jeff Bezos' DNA. And I don't mean like his actual genetic makeup, but I mean like in the way, and I go back to this two things, because the reason it was easy for me to see his strategy, and which is why I, as an investor, love Amazon, and I'll just keep it at that. I love Amazon as an investor. The reason I saw it quickly was because Jeff Bezos, like me, was electrical computer engineering. What does that mean? Well, electrical computer engineering, information, mathematics, process, you can't really solve problems without a full-blown process that you don't have to believe in. You just have to know it works. Mm-hmm. And oftentimes we're solving problems to either optimize something or to scale something. Mm-hmm. That's his schooling background. Mm-hmm. You take it from there to go to where he worked. He worked on Wall Street for a while, but where he really found his stride, where he found his wife, where he found Amazon, was at D.E. Shaw, one of the largest and most successful quantitative hedge funds. So what does that mean? A quantitative hedge fund is not hedge fund where, based on how I feel today or what I think or what my knowledge base is, it says, no, statistically, mathematically, process-driven type thinking, science and math. That's why he was there. They were on this in the 90s before this was even a name like quantitative, blah, 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 blah.
Man.
He was exposed to this environment, and all these people, the same places where he was selling goods are the same markets that he analyzed while at this hedge fund.
Wow.
It was just him going, aggregating what he had and went, oh, you know what? Instead of and here's the thing, here's the regulatory part. Hedge funds, financial world, highly guarded, highly regulated. There's Chinese walls everywhere, even though there's inside trading and all this other data sharing and malicious intent, right? Because the goal is to make a lot of money. Amazon was made outside of that because there was no regulation. There was no predators. So he could go take these strategies from this place that was, you know, they have rules and regulation. He went to a no knuckles, like you said, wild west. I can do what I want to do and use the same principles. And for as entrepreneurs, if you're thinking about being successful, take an environment which you know, or you really like, say, you know, the rules of engagement, know how they work, how they don't work, find somewhere where they don't exist. The world will be 20 years trying to catch up with you.
Exactly. And let me add to this really quickly. It's you know, I saw it the other day, right? Give you an example. So it's all about and I don't mean to take this to a different place, but if you look at the money, the cryptocurrency space, right? It's the same the same game. It's the wild west right now. Regulation is delayed because of the adaptation. That's what Bitcoin is. It's to get people in, get them excited, give them an incentive to make money, which is always the driver. The driver of adapting technology is always the incentive at the consumer level, right? At the retail level, what they call it, to benefit. And that benefit that is driving that institution adoption is same thing with payment processing. The same way we peer-to-peer share, you know, from Apple, from
Cash
Apple
App.
Pay to Apple Pay, from cash to cash, right? What we've done is we've said, hey, this is easy. This is convenient. There's no regulation in that, right? If I pay Michael for his services with Cash App, how does the IRS know, right? That
Exactly.
Michael owes tax on that money. Well, we're going to turn our eye that for a little while until you guys get really, really used to using that. And it's a really, really great convenience. And then once you really, really can't do without it, then we're going to come in and we're going to regulate it so we can get in the middle and understand kind of what that is. I'll give you one example. I was talking to
we got it just to keep it moving.
Okay, go ahead.
I think you gave a great breakdown, great understanding. Appreciate that. And so I want to go again, just in respect of the time, because we want to keep our pop
for sure
pretty short, if you will. And so I want to bring this to my role in this thing is to bring the culture to it, right? And so as this lawsuit is being brought about against Amazon, if you will, this is the FTC. What does that stand for? What does that stand for, Michael? Federal Trade
Commission.
Yep. So they're the actual ones that are looking to bring this lawsuit against Amazon in 2026, if you will. And so you're going to hear these type of things. How in 2018 there was a net loss of 500,000 jobs, if you will, right? Retail jobs and things of that nature. These are the things that are going to be highlighted, saying this is brought about. They're going to say because of Amazon, but to William's point, technology is always going to reduce costs and eventually change us from one way to a new way. So as we highlighted throughout this show, all of this is quite common. Again, we're not saying everything Amazon is okay. We're just highlighting how you're going to hear it. Amazon has knocked out all the retail. With that said, I want to bring it to the culture. And so something that we experience here in Atlanta, and I'm not saying I'm qualified to speak on this situation, but it always concerned me because I'm always concerned that to a degree, are we always paying attention to the lay of the land? And so here in Atlanta, really kind of outside of Atlanta, there is a place called Black Wall Street, a mall per se, that was put up a couple years ago. And from what I understand, in a sense, they're struggling to figure it out. And you used the word earlier, Michael, convenience, right? How much we are beholden to convenience. So it's actually, I have to, if I want to go to it, I've been out there to support it. If I want to go to it, I have to drive way outside of Atlanta for one. And two, I'm saying with the lay of the land and where retail is going. And for the last 2 years, they're always putting out the numbers, how much Christmas, after Black Friday, if you will, how much of the retail is moving to online versus in stores. I always, I don't know the people that just came up with the concept, but the concept, and again, to put up a mall, and the idea was, let's have our mall to ourselves as people. Let's have a mall that's our own. And then I remember I had a brother on my talk show, the Minute Outlaw talk show, and he was highlighting that he didn't think the marketing was done correctly. And I'm saying on the show, I don't know that it even mattered with the lay of the land. And so if they're able to take down all type of retailers, moving into the retail space doesn't, in my opinion, make a lot of sense. I'm not, again, just trying to criticize the people that came work with it or the founders, because I don't know them, but it just never made a lot of sense to me. But it gets reduced. I hear these conversations that we don't support our own. No, every group supports if it's convenient. If it's not convenient, it don't matter what you look like. I'm not necessarily driving way out when I can get this delivered to my house. It's simple as that. It's not a situation of where we're not supporting one another, but it gets couched as that. Go ahead, Michael.
Again, I think that is, again, one of the tenets. And I promise everybody, if you have not really read, I don't know if people read the same way, but if you have not read The Art of War or The Art of War for Business, and you're thinking about, or you're in business, you're doing yourself a disservice, because a lot of these things take, again, stuff that has been done 1,000 years ago and makes it relevant. What we have to do in that sense, like you talk about with Amazon, is all Amazon did was shape the environment. Like William said, it was a Trojan horse. I would posit that it was a Trojan horse, but also the campaign land that it was on. It was the entire board game. Amazon's goal is to be the entire board game, in the sense that, we talk about like regulation. One of the things I laugh about when it comes to the big companies is, again, it's an art of war tenet. You have to strike like lightning. Regulation by itself is slow as hell. And like you say, I'm gonna sue you, but because the way the legal structure is set up, I've got years to prepare. So you're giving one of the most powerful, the largest online retailer in the world with more money than God, as they call it, time to prepare for this legal assault. It's a nothing burger. They're going to do everything else. They got this already covered. Like, no matter what happens, because again, even if they can attack one part of Amazon's monopoly, what's going to happen? Like we saw it. If you look back at AT&T, when they broke up AT&T, Sprint, all the big, Big Bell, they brought Big Bell still existed in so many different pieces that it's still the same thing. It's just fragments. Yeah, it's still Big Bell. It's still, Amazon has learned from that, just like Apple and the rest of them have. Those businesses, because they're able to capture the information. And that was another thing about that marketplace that is so key. One thing that we should think about as entrepreneurs is, can I make a place that is, like you said, convenient for people to come, from people to pass along information as long as goods? Again, the Trojan horse for Amazon may have been the fact that we were able to first sell books. Then it was music and videos. Then it was everything else, right? But what he was gaining the whole time was what information? It was like, even if you take it back to antiquity, the smartest people in the markets were the ones who were able to see and listen and take back the information from no matter who they were talking to, whether you were selling sheep, whether you're selling shoes, no matter where you came from, the East, Africa. Amazon, by being an internet, which again is global by its design, it could be interplanetary depending on where he really wants to go next. But to be able to have and create that, and to interconnect it and make it a process that you and you alone can observe, like William says, you can share whatever information you want to. You can hop back and forth. You grab that and control it.
Let me throw one more thought, because you made me think of this in reference to the culture specifically.
Yeah.
So when you talked about how those people in antiquity that went to the marketplace and brought back that information, right? And so I would like to highlight, I have a book called Re-Education of the Negro, and it literally has a buying Black manifesto. So I'm leading with this because I'm about to go somewhere, but I'm leading with this to qualify what I'm about to say, so that people understand how much I believe in buying Black. how much I commit to it. I live in Atlanta because it's easy for me to buy black, right?
Yeah.
To a degree compared to a lot of other places in the country. However, in the landscape of the internet being global, I'm a historian, love black history, love world history.
Yep.
The thing is, civilization always thrives and grows where there is the most diversity.
Yes.
I'm leading into understanding in a global world that as much as we want to have our own, that it is a limiting mindset not to understand that the way you play and have the most resources to have your own is to be in the diverse marketplace
with everybody else
fully and actually making strategic alliances. So I think that's part of the failing too. I still go out and support. I got you, William. Go out to Black Wall Street and support it. But the however is that mindset is a bad thinking in 2024. Go ahead, William. Sorry about that, brother.
I gotta bring this home for you guys, and hopefully I can communicate this in the most clearest way of understanding. So when I've worked with a lot of minority groups, where you're talking about Asian, Indian, even African, so to speak. What you got to understand is the type of financial environment we're moving from to the one we're moving to. So the way that these cultural groups, the reason why they support their communities the way they do is because it's advantageous to the way that money works today. I'll give you an example. I'll give you an example.
That's big.
So a guy who is rich, say an Indian guy who is rich, right? The way that he does business is different than what the system really wants him to do business like. What he does is he does a lot in cash. And the reason why he operates in cash is because it allows him to avoid a lot of tax loopholes in the way that they make and keep money. In order to do that, he has to go to a banking system of his community because that's the only way he's going to be able to operate that way. In order to have that banking system, right, it can't just be him. That's not enough people.
Right.
So what he has to do is empower his people to make more money so they too can attend that same community banking system, which allows him to operate in the way that he can keep his money. I'll give you an example. If you've ever worked for a guy who is rich in a different culture, a lot of times what he's going to do is he's going to sign you up as a contract worker, number one. Number two, he's going to pay you in cash. So you tell me, Mr. Montoya, where are you going to go to get $3,000 in ones? What banking system can you go to right now and get $3,000 in ones to pay someone? You can't.
You can't.
Because if you go to your institution and say, I want $3,000 in ones, they're going to be like, we don't do that here, Mr. Montoya. Nope. Now, on the example I just gave you, they have the ability to operate that way. But the reason why they do is they have community banking. So they are incentivized economically to empower their own at the top level so that they can have the ability to move in the financial space that they need. Now, that being said, that is the old system. So this goes into what you're talking about, Montoya, right? The old system is transitioning to a new system. And in that new system, diversity is going to be more valuable because of the way the system actually operates. You understand? So that avoiding tax and stuff like that in a non-cash environment is not going to be incentive. And trust when I tell you, there is just as much bullshit, so to speak, in other minority groups as there are in ours. In terms of support. They don't support each other like we think. They do it based on the incentive financially to avoid the structure by way the financial system is designed. If you understand that, then you can get away from the mindset that thinking people don't work with you because of what you look like. It's not so much that, because if you can make money for them, they will employ you all day to do that.
Ladies and gentlemen, we just found out how to make something of your own. He just told you. Keep going.
They need that financial foundation from a community. And I've worked with several very prominent guys in different minority spaces, and the way they operate, they look at you like you're dumb. They look at you like this. If you want to go operate that way, you do it. You ain't never going to make no money. Inflation is going to keep you from making money.
Yes.
Taxes is going to keep you from making money.
Exactly.
You can't make money operating that way, so they don't operate that way. They realize they have to pool it, and they have to employ their people to be able to patronize it in order for it to work for them so they can keep the money that they make. That is
let me throw this out though. Let me throw this out just to kind of, I just want to add this clarity because it still seems like circular in the way, at least the way I'm hearing you. I want to highlight that what the groups are doing is going to get the money outside and bringing it back to the community. That's how you play in the marketplace versus this concept that is circular and you buy within, because I want to highlight how taxes eat up if you play the way that sometimes we make the mistake of playing in. So what happens is if we go have our own quote unquote Black Wall Street and we believe that our money alone can support it, well, you're competing against other groups who are mixing and taking full advantage of the tax incentives. Well, you're asking your people to play with less money while still being get taxed by the system you're trying to avoid.
Right.
Like you already have less money and you're still being taxed, but you're trying to avoid and have our own and we don't need them, where everybody else says, what's the rules of the system and who else can I work with? At the end of the day, by human nature, my resources are going to go to my family first and those closest to me. So you end up taking care of yourself by human nature. Like that's what we kind of misunderstand and think, oh, we should support each other by how you look, and no group is doing that. I just want to keep iterating. No group is doing that. It is a common interest. Go ahead, William.
Because it's not strategic in the way that we do it. We do it off of principle.
Yep.
We're doing it off of principle. We're doing it off you're black, I'm black. Like I said, minorities don't operate that way. They don't like each other just like we don't like each other.
Yeah, we still say all skin folk and kinfolk. So it's
every group.
It's every group.
It's every group.
It's not worse in our community. We think that it's worse, not understanding that, hey, Three the Smart Way comes together because we've built relationships and we know each other. But, and again, y'all have serious background, so we pull this off. I can't pull out Three the Smart Way with just anybody. And that's how every group looks at it within themselves. I have to find the right people to trust.
Yes.
And do it strategically within the marketplace. William, I'm gonna give you the last thought. I'm gonna give both y'all one last thought so we can get off this thing.
Just to finish on that thought, the cultural thing is very financially ingrained. And that's what you got to understand. We look at it as just the cultural thing. Black people should support black people. But for other minorities, it is cultural because they need that person in order to fulfill this community resource in order for the guys at the top to continue to operate in an environment that requires them to save what they've made. That's number one. So it's a culture. It's not as cultural as it is a financial benefit to operate that way. And that's what we got to understand. We got to put the finance ahead of the cultural, because you understand, we all understand, especially Michael, right? We all understand how important finance and capital is to sustaining political voice.
Yes.
Right? And I know you understand that too, Montoya, in terms of political voice and strategic, ability to make change. And what they understand is that over the fact that they don't really like each other or rock with each other, they realize that in order to be visible in this political environment that we're in, we have to have a resource of financial stability that we can go to and operate the way that we can keep what we've gained. And essentially, that's what it is.
Yeah, and I just want to highlight, even what William's talking about, they still found the few in their group that they trust to do everything William just talked about. Right. Don't automatically do it for one another, which is what we mistakenly say quite often. Michael, I'll give you a last thought, man.
Yeah, no, to me, I want to put out a fun fact about Bezos again. Amazon could have been an Indian company first, or it could have been on a Native American reservation. Okay. Like he turned at the reason why, because again, as he was planning out all of his other stuff, and I'm going to ground out a point on this, he wanted to avoid taxes from the jump. From
Always
the jump,
that.
he knew. Because he knew as he
Always.
scaled, he knew what William was saying. That the government's going to let him scale. Low cost, cool, sounds good. Soon as you got to that $1 billion mark, here come those 3-letter boys. Give us our due at the highest level, right? So it kind of rounds back to, like you were saying, you know, we can have our own, but you have to shape it in a value proposition that benefits the most people. That is business 101. But to do so, you just don't come up with an idea. Say, I want to go to space, or I want to do this, you know, black people in space or something like that. But it's to the point of, if you sit down, strategically plan out something, and you can't do it alone. Again, Bezos is always this one unifying person, you know, visionary. Along the way, his wife, believe it or not, was there was a reason why he had no hard feelings carving off. There was like, she got her due. Those people, oh, she did was no. Mackenzie Bezos is brilliant, will continue to be brilliant, and she added on to him as well. But he had several others, not just benefactors, people that shifted him. We have to be the same way. I know from my own. I thought I was visionary till I got to a point. I'm like, you're one visionary in a sea, in a Pacific Ocean of other visionary. What makes you different? It's the people who are interdisciplinary, multicultural, like you're saying. Not everybody around me looks like me. We have a similar goal, but my thing that made the hump for me was to find incentive for the humans. I tell my wife this all the time. Want to get the kids to do something? They got to have an incentive. You know, I have to have an incentive. You know, I tell her all the time. I appeal to your incentive whether you know it or not. You know, I shield it because, again, I think what works for business also works at home too. We're about to celebrate 17 years of marriage now, so it's the same thing.
So we'll close out incentive with William's favorite word. You got to have a value proposition.
Yeah,
have a value proposition. Look. Let me say this real quick. They're about to take that whole thing I explained.
Mm-hmm.
When you continue to move in this technology space where all the money can be accounted for, and all the money can be accounted for because there's no offline option.
Exactly.
Diversity and inclusion is going through the motherfucking roof. Trust me when I tell you, it's going through the roof.
Despite all the propaganda of getting rid of beaten eye, John Hope Bryant was just on Breakfast Club. As a matter of fact, we might dialogue about that one for the next one.
Yeah, that's a good one.
The reality of the financial benefit to DEI and why it has to come to fruition. And part of the propaganda and fight is the old school fighting what's inevitable.
Exactly.
You hear that sound, Mr. Anderson?
Yeah, exactly.
Sound of the inevitable, baby.
Yeah, exactly.
100%.
With that said, we going on 3 the Smart Way. I will highlight right now, we're still up on the Mentor Dialogue YouTube page. So recommend everyone subscribe to the Mentor Dialogue YouTube page. And that's where you will be able to go back and catch the replays. But great show, you guys. Just wanted to put that up. Till the next time, man. Episode 3 coming soon. We'll pop up hopefully weekly, but we got to all our schedules are crazy. So we'll get them as soon as
we can. Yep.
All right. With that said, thank y'all very much for another great episode of 3 the Smart Way, where business and finance for the culture. All right, fellas, we out.
All right. Peace.
Stay on. Y'all stay on. I'll just drop y'all at the back.
Okay.